Hey family, welcome back. We're reading the Sealed Nectar. We're on page 569, towards the middle paragraph. The Jews of Bani Qurayza could have tolerated the siege much longer because food and water were plentifully available, and their strongholds were greatly fortified, whereas the Muslims were in the wild bare land suffering a lot from cold and hunger, let alone extreme fatigue from the endless warfare operations that began before the Battle of the Confederates. So he really sets up the contrast there, right? One, the Jews of the Banu Qurayza tribe, they are pretty well fortified, whereas the Muslims kind of more out and enduring the elements. Nevertheless, this was a battle of nerves, for Allah had cast fear in the Jews' hearts, and their morale had almost collapsed, especially when two Muslim heroes, Ali bin Abi Talib and Az-Zubair bin Awam, proceeded with Ali, swearing that he would never stop until he had either stormed their fort or been martyred like Hamza. In the light of this reluctance they had nothing except to comply with the messenger's judgment. Allah's messenger, peace be upon him, ordered that the hands of the men should be bound, so they can't escape, right? And this was done under the supervision of Muhammad bin Salama al-Ansari, while the women and children were isolated in confinement. Thereupon Allah's tribe interceded, begging the Prophet, peace be with him, to be lenient towards them. He suggested that Sa'ad bin Mu'ad, a former ally, be deputed to give verdict about them, and they agreed. Sa'ad, meanwhile, stayed behind in Medina due to a serious wound he sustained in the Battle of the Confederates. Ooh, I wonder where it was. He summoned and brought on a donkey, and on his way to the Prophet, peace be upon him, the Jews pressed him to be lenient in his judgment on account of former friendship. Sa'ad remained silent, but when they persisted, he uttered, "It is time for Sa'ad not to be afraid of the blame of the blamers." On hearing this decisive attitude, some of them returned to Medina and spread the news of the fate of the prisoners. On arrival, he alighted with the help of some men. He was informed that the Jews had agreed to accept his verdict about them. He immediately wondered if his judgment would pass on all the people present. The Prophet, peace be upon him, included turning his face away in honor of him. The reply was positive. Battle of the Confederates. He decided that all the able-bodied male persons belonging to the tribe should be killed, women and children taken as prisoners, and their wealth divided amongst the Muslim fighters. Pretty standard, to be honest. And anyone who wants to cherry pick, right? Oh, look at the Muslims did this in their warfare. Show me a battle where this didn't happen. Okay? In history. Come on. You should have seen what the Aztecs did. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, accepted his judgment, saying that Sa'ad had adjudged by the command of Allah. In fact, the Jews deserved that they severe punitive action for the ugly treachery they had harbored against Islam, and the larger arsenal they amused, which consisted of 1,500 swords, 2,000 spears, and 300 coat of armor. That's a lot of weaponry. That's amazing. 500 shields, and all of which went into the hands of the Muslims. So they really got a nice little stockpile, didn't they? Little nice resources. That's profitable then. Not only did you take over your enemy, but you got some new supplies as well. Trenches were dug in the bazaar of Medina, and a number of Jews between 600 and 700 were beheaded therein. That's efficient. That's amazing. Battle numbers like that. Hotbeds of intrigue and treachery were thus exterminated once and for all. He has a point, because if you allow too many of your enemies that are hell-bent on you to exist, there comes a point where you can have treaties and stuff like that, and it'll work, but other times it won't. It's kind of really like what Caesar did. He had to exterminate some, and he pardoned others, right? Huyay, a chief criminal of war, a devil of Bani Nadir and Safia's father, had joined the ranks of Banu Qurayza when the Quraysh and the Ghatafan defected. Was admitted into the audience of the Prophet, peace be upon him, with his hands tied to his neck with a rope. In bold rebellious tone he declared full enmity to the Prophet, but admitted that Allah's will was to be fulfilled, and added that he was submissive to his destiny. He was ordered to sit down and was beheaded on the spot. That's like a oh, or like in Game of Thrones when Theon Greyjoy beheads. No, yeah, he does behead one of the Stark men, and you know, it's a classic scene in a lot of movies where somebody is your enemy, they're captured, you bring them to them, and then they say something like, "I'll die anyways," and then they get their head cut off. It's pretty standard. Only one woman of the Jews was killed because she had killed a Muslim warrior by throwing a grinding stone upon him. A few elements of the enemy embraced Islam in their lives. Wealth and children were spared. As for the spoils of war, the Prophet, peace be upon him, divided them, which is smart. Caesar did the same. Cortez, I believe, did the same. After putting a fifth aside, in accordance with Allah's orders, 3 shares went to the horsemen and 1 to the infantry fighter. Women captives were sent to Najd to be bartered with horses and weaponry. For himself, the Prophet, peace be upon him, selected Rahana bin Zayd bin Amr bin Kanafan bin Shamun bin Zayd. Manumitted and married her in the 6th year of Al-Hijrah. She died shortly after the farewell pilgrimage and was buried in Al-Baqi. Wait a minute. She married her? That's a long name. Married her. She died. What did she die of? After the war with Bani Qurayza had been settled and they had been defeated, Sa'ad bin Mu'adh's wish was gratified and he gave his last breath. In response to his supplication, Aisha narrated that Sa'ad's wounds began to bleed from the front part of his neck, while he was in the tent which the Prophet, peace be upon him, had pitched for him in the mosque so that he would be in close proximity, in order to inquire about and watch his well-being. The people were not scared except when the blood flowed towards them, and in the masjid along with Sa'ad's tent, there was a tent of Banu Gifar. They said, "O people of the tent, what is it that is coming to us from you?" Lo, it was Sa'ad's wound that was bleeding, and he died thereon. His wound was bleeding. Al-Bukhari and Muslim recorded from Jabir that Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, said, "The throne of the compassionate shook for the death of Sa'ad bin Mu'adh." Wow. At Tirmidhi graded a narration authentic from Anas, in which he said, when the shrouded body of Sa'ad bin Mu'adh was carried, At-Tirmidhi said, the hypocrites alleged it was too light. Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, replied, the angels are carrying him. So he must have really been very important to everybody. Mentioned was bleeding and that a procession of angels participating in the burial rites. Quite interesting. In the process of the siege of Banu Qurayza, one man of the Muslims, Khalad bin Suwaid, was killed when a woman of the Jews dropped a grinding stone on him, and another, Abu Sinan bin Mishhan, the brother of Uqsah, died. Abu Lubaba stayed tied for 6 nights. His wife used to untie him at prayer times, and then he would tie himself again to the pole. Why? On the early morning, Allah the All-Forgiving revealed that Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, that Allah had turned to Abu Lubaba with forgiveness. Oh, I get it. It's that one dude. Yeah, oh, yeah, I remember. Okay. The Muslims rushed to release him, but he insisted that Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, himself do it. And this was done shortly before the Fajr prayer. This battle took place in the month of Dhuhul Qada in the 5th year of Al-Hijrah. In the siege of Banu Qurayza's fort lasted 25 days. That's a long siege. Surah Al-Hazab, the Confederates, was revealed concerning the basic issues relating to the believers and hypocrites during the Battle of the Confederates. the consequences of the Jews' treachery and their breach of covenants. Oh, very informative. Interesting. Very, very cool, man. I like all the battle info. It's a great book, don't you think?